No story, no horror. What the hell, A24? Hello, welcome to the HolmFront. I am Tyler, your host, and to my right, as always, is my overly artistic friend Mitch, and Mitch is doing stuff now that we're on. Just hit the...
There's a thing. I can't.
It's distracting.
I can't do this with a thing.
Red. Oh.
It's this red.
You were supposed to drive me over here in a car set to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. I had to go without that. I'm not dealing with a thing.
There's nothing to argue against there.
Don't worry, guys. We're firing him soon. Anyway, so we saw a movie this week. What did we see?
This is such a cheery opening for
I
something
know.
that's not cheery at
So
all. This is our way of compensating for the horror, as you put it, the horror of this movie.
I guess there was horror in this movie.
Oh, it was definitely horrific.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All
So
right,
we
so
saw.
maybe I'm less disappointed than I thought I was. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we saw Warfare.
Warfare. A24.
Yeah.
They
and
have 2 films in theaters right now, and we had a choice to make.
we made the right choice.
We made the without knowing anything about the other movie, we made the right decision. The other one is Death of a Unicorn. Doesn't seem like it's doing very well. Could kind of tell from the trailer it wasn't going to be great.
It's like A24 sometimes likes weird humor. I don't know how else to put it, what kind of humor it is, but we saw a trailer actually in the middle of this. Do you remember? It was for something. It was like Friendship or something. And it starts. It was a super long trailer. We should do a review of it.
Oh yeah,
It went on forever, and it's
real
just this
bizarre.
buddy friend comedy drama movie, and you're like, all right, and it does that for like 3 minutes. I'm not even kidding. And then it switches, and then there's like the cops get involved. He doesn't want to be his friend anymore.
It's like
There's
that
murder.
It's like that
and you're
Irish
like,
film with Colin Farrell, Banshees of Inisherin.
which actually you owe everybody a Banshees of Inisherin episode, because you said in the first episode that we would talk about it,
Was that
and
the
then we
first episode?
totally didn't talk about it. Yeah, it's the first episode we recorded. I don't know if it's the first one that aired, but it's the first one we recorded. You said we'd talk about it, and then we never did.
We didn't. We should double feature that with the other one that he did.
In Bruges.
In Bruges.
He has a couple
love
other
In Bruges.
movies. Yeah, he's got quite a few, so we should.
Yeah,
Take a
I did
look.
watch Banshees of Inisherin, it was great. But we should get back to Warfare. So here we are talking about the movie. We did
Warfare, stay on topic.
Stay on topic. Yeah, so Warfare.
So the premise.
The premise. The best I can put it is it's literally just a movie trying to capture this one moment in time. It's based on a real story, based on the memories of all the people involved, or the Marines, I should say, that were involved. And it's just this moment in time. That's it. It's not interested in anything else. So just to give you kind of a precursor, if you go watch this movie, it's not your traditional war movie. It doesn't have any arcs. It doesn't have like a villain. It doesn't care about telling you a story. It's just, this is what these guys went through right then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
It's an hour and 50 minutes of just a day in the life in the Iraq War.
Yeah.
At least I think it was Iraq, was it not? It was 2005 is when it was set.
I don't remember the
It could have
dates
been
of it. So it's
Iran,
either
but-
yeah, I can't remember. Regardless, so with that premise in mind, you aren't gonna get anything, like a Saving Private Ryan, where you're following around a group of people that all have some kind of growth or some kind of role. I mean, they kind of have roles in them, but it's really just about the horrors that they went through in this particular attack.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
And the reason I guess that it's called Warfare is just because of how hyper realistic it is in the depiction of this moment.
Well, yeah, part of it is trying to push back, I think, against against any kind of glorification of war. Like, this movie felt like it was trying to do the exact opposite to the best of its ability. Be like, no, it looks like this. This is what it's actually like. Because there's like action kind of, but not really. I think you see like one character get like one like quote unquote bad guy get like shot. Everybody else is just like they just fire shots. Nobody gets hit because everybody's concerned with self-preservation, as it would be in real life. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, just suppress a fire, get them off our backs, and that's what pretty much everyone's doing the whole movie. So there is a whole lot of that. Like the first, I think I timed, or I mean, I know I timed it. I just can't remember the exact number, but it took about 45 minutes before the actual like conflict starts to erupt, and before that point is just a lot of like getting orders and taking notes, and there's like some wisecracking and stuff, but that's like your standard military guy. I mean, they're a bunch of guys. They they need to find a way to pass the time, so it makes sense. It just felt very natural. So it was like super realistic dialogue, everyone just going about their day, and you get to see some insights. Like it opens with these guys just watching
They're
this.
watching a workout video. So
this
it's like
work-
old like Buns of Steel
yeah,
VHS that they throw in. And
right.
and of course it's like appealing because they got a bunch of chicks in there that are scantily clad and doing these like
Right.
completely useless workouts. But that's just a group. I can't even. It's like 15 guys that are all crammed in this room watching this mini TV.
Right.
And that's like the crux of it. So it's their camaraderie through that, and you kind of get the different reactions and expressions of people as they're watching it. And then the next scene they jump into is them at night going through this village and taking a house. And some of it's kind of boring. Like they're just they get stuck on a corner
Really, were you
watching.
bored at any? Because I
No, no,
wasn't
no.
bored the whole movie.
I'm talking about
Oh.
when they're like trying to stimulate themselves. So like when they're sitting out there at night, they just start emulating the workout video, and like that's how they're communicating while they're just trying to pass the time with this event. But yeah, so they take over the house, and part of
Let me comment one thing onto that. There's like this on-off switch that they do of like when humor's used versus when it's
Yeah.
serious. So they're like cracking jokes, and then someone says like we're gonna move, and then it's like everything stops.
Yep.
So there's a real like that's what I mean by being super realistic and grounded, is that there's a real attention to, well, this is how they are, this is how they are gonna let themselves free. But like as soon as there's like a command or an order or a threat or anything where they have to be on point, then they are, and then suddenly there's this dramatic shit. But yeah, go on.
Yeah.
I just
So
didn't want to give off the impression that it was like some comedy film for a moment.
yeah, it's definitely if you've spent any time around Marines, especially within some of their operations, like that's just how they act is work, work,
Yeah.
work all the time. You got to find somewhere in there to make it somewhat more stimulating or fun, I suppose. All work or no play makes Jack a dull boy or whatever.
Mhm.
So they take over a house, and you don't know exactly why. It doesn't matter. And so that's kind of where you discover like, okay, this movie's not going to hold my hand at all. It doesn't
Mm.
care why the conflict's going on. It doesn't care about you understanding why they're taking this house. It doesn't really give you anything. They don't have like a target. They're just kind of working under orders. And so they take this house, they clear the whole thing, and they go through great effort to show that these people that live in this house are just the basic civilians that live there, just the local populace there that have nothing to do with this conflict. But these Marines need this place, so they jump into it, and then it's just a waiting game.
They're like a sniper support team, I think was the idea.
Something
So
like
they
that,
have
yeah.
like a sniper, a dedicated sniper in their team, and then they're supposed to escort them into a position and then monitor and then provide, support. But then
Yep.
there's that shift about halfway through where they get discovered, and then that's where the major conflict happens. And there's not really much else to say, I think, about the premise. I don't think, because at that point it's just a bunch of like really gruesome war events, and it really kind of toes the line between how gratuitous it is, because it's hard to depict something in a form of entertainment while trying to be honest with how you depict it, right? It's basically the Call of Duty problem, because it's like, people are really critical of violent video games still, even to this day. And like, Call of Duty is always that prime example because it's popular, but because it's trying to emulate,
Some sort of realism.
yeah, some sort of
Yeah.
realism, or it's like set in a context of real life and they're using realistic weaponry and etc. And so, the idea of Call of Duty being bad is because it allows you, the
Immersive
player,
into something that might inspire you to do something real.
right, exactly. But also just it doesn't really accurately portray what those events are like.
No.
And the same could be applied for movies, though. Like we were saying before, with like more movies, there's like the heroism Like one of the key interesting things about this movie is there's no music whatsoever, none, until like the very end. It's basically just the end credits at that point. So the lack of music, I actually really like that choice. I mean, the movie's only an hour and a half long, so had it been longer, I think that might have been maybe more noticed. But because it's only an hour and a half, I think it works. But you can see right there, it's like it's not trying to be like this cinematic story. It's more like you put it, just a snapshot in time. Let's authentically capture this moment, and that's it.
Yeah, I guess you could attribute like a documentary
Almost,
mindset
yeah,
because it's not trying to like reenact necessarily. It's trying to make you feel like you were part of that moment while it was going on. So it's really not interested in someone running out and being heroic or taking down all the bad guys by himself, single-handedly running out there or whatever.
yeah.
It's about like what happens to a person when this stuff starts to go on when you're faced with that kind of reality.
hmm
Uh, but also it's telling the true story or from the best of their memory what these guys went through.
Yeah, that was really interesting. It starts by saying like this is all based off of
The
their
memories,
memories,
yeah.
not events and not like
And not
documentation,
based
not a
on
tech.
true events, it's based on these guys' memories.
Yeah,
Memories of everyone involved or something.
which I thought was a really interesting way to phrase that.
Mm.
I haven't quite made up my mind about it
Well,
because
I'm also curious what that means because
yeah,
obviously they spoke to all the Marines, but it almost gave you the implication at the end there that they may have spoken to some of the local populace as well,
mm,
because they show like the actual picture of the people whose home they took over,
hmm
and it shows that they live at least at the end of the movie. So we're not really sure like how many memories are involved in this, if it's just the Marines or maybe it extends out further than that. But they piece it all together and they come out with this, and I mean the memory in that type of environment has got to be a pretty fickle thing.
hmm
You've got to be
yeah,
misremembering all kinds of small details. You've got to like in the beginning, they're just sitting there, right? That sniper guy, he has a hole in the wall and he's just watching a specific set of people on the other side of the street or whatever. And the other guys, like we were saying, are just their support team. So they're just kind of hanging out in the house and making sure everything is secure while he's doing that.
hmm
But then as tension starts to escalate, obviously, things start to get lost in the mud. The grenade goes off and then bullets are flying and people are getting hurt. And so it's at that point you're going to forget certain details. You're going to
hmm
remember the big stuff, obviously, like the guy losing his legs or certain wounds or
yeah,
maybe something that stands out. Like there's a scene in the movie which I question its existence as well, but I think it's a good example here. There's a guy that comes running through and he is just amped out of his mind. He comes running in. He's just like, "Yeah, let's go, let's go!" He's just like waving his
okay.
rifle in the air. But
Hold on. The important context for this though is there are some guys who are severely, severely
well, let's
injured
get into
at this
that. So
point. Okay.
he starts tripping over the wounded people on the ground.
No, it's not
Peop
just tripping. He's like kicking them in their wounded
well, he
like
taps him,
legs.
but he trips over him at first. The guy starts
Yeah.
like pushing, "Get out of here, go get back!" And he's like, "What? Are you okay?" And he's like, "Stop touching him, man." He's like, he's severely wounded. He's gonna die.
Right.
He's just like pumping out blood. They're on morphine, and this guy just it doesn't compute with him. The severity of the situation that's going on around, and you understand because you've been going through this. But this is a guy that comes in to help, and he's just excited and amped up that he's in a warfare situation, and I think he's just shut down all the faculties of human nature. He's
Yeah.
like, I have no concept of like what this means to everyone around me. I just know that like if I start to try and accept reality, I'm probably gonna crumple. That's how I kind of
Oh,
interpreted
okay.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
Is just, but the part of it is interesting given the context that this is based on memories of people. Is like, is this the way that they remember it, or is this the way that it actually was happening? Because it might have just been that
Right.
that was such a jarring thing. Like maybe some guy did come in and trip over this guy's legs or whatever, but he wasn't being as crazy as it was depicted in the movie.
Right.
But to them, it's so serious. It's such a jarring thing that maybe it amps up their memory, right? So now it's more dramatic than it actually was. But it was an interesting example of how this movie was just trying to portray something and not really. It was like, yeah, this may or may not be all completely correct, but it kind of captures the essence of what they went through, and that's what it was concerned with doing.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, when you're working with memories, you have a lot of just interpretive work that has to happen.
Right.
So
Creative liberty, as they call it.
yeah, so but I mean that's kind of a good thing in this case because you almost have cross-reference memories because you have all the people who survived that can verify. So you get kind of like a mixture of like true events plus like how it felt to be there, and that emphasis on like the felt experience I think is really important for this movie because that example you were thinking of. My whole take is I kind of really connected with the guy who was basically doing the medic role at that point, and he's trying to keep his friend from dying here, and then he has this other guy coming in. So his interpretation would be like, you're like totally making like you're being so just like you are applying the wrong attitude for this situation, and it's stressing me out, it's stressing him out, it's causing him more pain. I'm trying to get a hold of this situation. You're not helping, so just shut up and get out of my way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was like
Or leave, whatever.
or leave, yeah. And he was, and it's almost like it's not necessarily. There's nothing that says what I'm about to say here, but like one interpretation you could read is simply that he's witnessing his friend probably going to die. So there's like this surge of maybe anger that comes out
Sure.
and is like, okay, someone has to take this, and this guy is the prime target because he tripped over
Sure.
his leg or whatever.
He's exasperating the situation in some small way.
Right. Now,
Sure.
I'm not saying he felt that or anything. I don't think it matters. I think that it will make the film just better on repeat viewings as much as you can stomach a movie like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because that's the thing. This is like a rough movie to get through. It's not like again, it's not focused on like the action element. It's pretty much like if like one thing I really took away from this experience was that when someone gets hit by a bullet, undoing that damage is like nigh impossible. It's so much work. If you injure the human body, it's like trying to like then patch it back up and fix it is like it's crazy because they're the whole time they're just firing these guns and throwing grenades and all these bombs and firing tanks, and it's just like explosions. Like the destruction was so much easier to do than it was. Like once someone was hurt, it was like sheesh, now we have a problem that's virtually impossible to undo. And I thought that was like a
Or to
really
control.
or to control,
That
yeah.
was one of the interesting and probably one of the rougher parts of the film was that there's one of the guys, he has a, I don't know if it's shrapnel or bullet or what. It's not really interested either in showing what exactly happens. Like there's a tank that explodes and it doesn't show you anything. It could have been an IED, it could have been an RPG, it could have been someone throwing another grenade. It
Mhm.
doesn't care. It just knows this exploded and this is what come from it. So one of the guys, one of his legs is wounded, and his buddy, the medic, is trying to hold it basically together. So he's got this gauze, and he's just like packing it into this guy's wound. It's gnarly, and the guy's screaming bloody murder, and he's having a hard time doing it to his friend, but he's also like, if I don't stop the bleeding, then he's gonna die. But the amount of time and pressure that he's having, he's like basically sitting on this guy's leg for the better part of an hour, waiting for someone to come and get them out of there. Just the amount of effort that it takes, and that's one of
Yeah.
the things. So I used to work on a military base and watched this type of training, and it's called urban warfare. And essentially, it was a town that was built like that, and I controlled the cameras as they ran through. So I would get a sheet. I can't remember what it's called. There's a name for it, and I'll remember it later. But
Mhm.
there's a sheet, and it's kind of basically a list of actions. So
Okay.
the guy that created this scenario would come up to me. They called him SMEs, subject matter expert. He'd come up to me, and there was a list of them. There was ex-recon guys, or ex-snipers, or like it was
Okay.
just anyone you could imagine. They were all in there, and they all had a vast pool of expertise to pull from. But he'd come in, he'd hand me the thing. He's like, "Hey, this is second squad's gonna be running through the town, and this is what they're gonna encounter." And they would put in like local populace, and they would try and match it as best they could. They'd had Filipinos or Iraqis or Iranis or Afghanis, whatever. They'd have them put in there so that they could actually deal with a culture that they were going to be dealing with in the future
Mm.
potentially.
Okay.
And then they would have active shooters, RPGs, IEDs, all that kind of stuff kind of rigged within the town. So they'd be like, all right, they're going to come in through X gate, and they would label it. So whenever they go to a certain place like this, they get a shot of town, and they will label the buildings so that everyone knows where everything is. So you'd have like Whiskey 3 or India 5, whatever, so that
They did
everybody.
that in this movie too, where they're like, "Oh, it's House 3, it's House
Yeah,
4."
it's a
So
military
yeah,
tactic.
yeah,
So this one, since it's a facility, like they're all the same all the time, but you'll get intel essentially with the map, and then you can be able to communicate with whomever is going to come. Like if you have a QRF setup or something, which is a quick reaction force. If you have your comm set up to where I'm like, hey, I have a medical emergency, I need an evac. I'm in Whiskey 3 on the west side. You're gonna come to the back door and come get me and pull these guys out. That's so everybody can communicate appropriately as to where you are and what you're doing. So I would have this scenario and I would control the cameras and be able to watch everything that was going on. And once I got good enough, I knew not only what to look for, but what each SME would want to look for, because each one was different on
okay,
the mistakes that were made. So you could see from a bird's eye view, literally, how quickly and this is a fake scenario, how quickly the organization and the order of men could disintegrate with certain events.
hmm.
So if you threw off, an IED, separate the squad, because they're going to be running.
Wait,
They're
what's IED?
improvised explosive device. So like that
Okay,
would be. So that's what they claimed it was in the movie. I'm not exactly sure. Like I said, it wasn't interested in telling me what it was, but that would be something that you would, like a pipe bomb or something.
oh,
You'd
okay,
put something like that that might have a pressure plate, or maybe it is activated by like a cell phone or walkie-talkie or something.
I
So like
see.
that's one of the things they would look for is as they're going down, everyone's kind of looking, but you don't want the populace to think that you're aggressive at first. So you walk down, you're walking, your guns are down, and you're kind of just observing. And that's what they call establishing a baseline. So a
Okay,
baseline is how everything looks without an event going on.
hmm.
But then if you see someone that's kind of watching you and he's sitting on a cell phone, and it seems like he keeps glancing over and keeps watching you, then it's like, okay, there's something I need that's a suspicious activity, right? He's like paying too much attention. And then if you have him and someone else on a rooftop that's kind of peeking out at you constantly, now you have a 1+1. And when that happens, you start to raise the tension a little bit. It's like, okay, I've got a couple of factors here that are potentially dangerous. So now I need to start paying more attention.
Hmm.
So that's when communication starts rolling through. Okay, I got a guy on a roof. He's watching us. Another guy on a cell phone. Make sure you guys are paying attention to those guys specifically and keep your eye out, blah, blah, blah. And then when something happens, when a kinetic event is what they call it, happens, like an IED goes off, or maybe an RPG jumps up from a rooftop and shoots, everything disintegrates. So
Hmm.
that's when they're trying to instill in these guys what to do in a high stress environment like that. And that's when you just you discern priorities. So the priority number one is take care of the shooter on average. If you can
Okay,
pinpoint what the threat was, you need to lock it down. So it doesn't matter if you kill him, you just need to neutralize it so it's not a consistent threat. So you usually have a couple of guys jump up, start shooting.
I see.
The second priority is your wounded guys. And that's when the other guys will rush in, pick him up, and get him somewhere safe. And that can be difficult because when you jump into a kinetic environment, depending on the rules of war, you can take over a building. Now, it depends on what that building is. You can't go into religious establishments. Like, if you see a medical
Okay,
facility, you want to prioritize that one over a house, something like that. But you got to clear those facilities first. You might run into a group of other enemies that are just as
right.
ready to take you out. So now they'll grab that wounded guy, go clear a building or at least a portion of it in order to get him in safety. And then you will slowly build the security from there. So you take over a room, drop the guy, and then the rest of the squad is going to start clearing the rest of that building depending on how big it is, which is another factor you've got to put in when you're like, I need somewhere to put this guy. I don't want a giant building that I don't know I can secure the whole thing,
I
but I
see.
don't
Yeah.
want somewhere where I know it's more likely to be dangerous. I don't want to box myself into something small. All that to say, it's really interesting to see how quickly that can disintegrate and how, the more kinetic things that are going on, it's just chaos. And
Hmm.
all the order that you've instilled into yourself can go right out the window. It helps for sure. I'm not saying it's useless, but it is really interesting to watch these guys who have been going through this type of training for months and months and months. Once a real situation comes about, how difficult that can be. And so I can't
Yeah.
imagine what that would be like if now you're applying it to people that you have made friends with, that you are very close to, which it's almost brotherly at that point. And now you're having to deal with them being wounded. And that's one of the things that this film portrays really well too, is like
Hmm.
it can crack you. Like the guy losing his legs. One of the
Yeah.
guys thinks that his friend's dead and he just stands there in the middle of a firefight just staring down at him, not able to comprehend or move because his brain is just shut down. It's like you need to not be comprehending this right now.
Yeah. Okay. So you're throwing too much at me.
Sorry.
I want to poke at some of this.
Go ahead, please.
So okay. So here's what I'll say. It's like, just if you're still like undecided, the thing you should note is like, this is one of those. It's an important film, but it's not a particularly good movie.
Sure.
Not that it's a bad movie, but it's like, if you're going here just to be entertained, that's not what this is. And I think I kind of want to poke at the other element, like the sort of the memory and the psychology aspect, which is like that second half of that second layer in the film. But before I deviate too much from your experiences, which I think are interesting, um, did you feel like how accurate did you feel the movie was based? But I mean, I guess you were watching simulation, so it's not quite the same. But was there anything that like maybe compares, or that you felt like, oh yeah, they're following that to a T?
Are you talking about in tactics or?
Well, just in like how the film portrays like how people or how these guys like would react to the situation. Like, did they apply themselves in the way that you were like, yeah, that's what they're trained to do, or was it more, or was like, is there any examples of like, oh, they or did you just see them screwing up the whole time? Because it's practice, so it's just all the screw.
You suck at this, Josh. Get in line. So I've never seen an actual scenario where people are really getting hurt and all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
So I mean,
yeah.
it's difficult to apply that.
Right.
But I mean, even with the simulations, you can tell how difficult it is to deal with that, because you don't know.
Well, because how serious do they make those simulations is the thing. Like how intense? Because like part of like there's like a whole like 20-minute scene in this where some guy is just screaming in pain for 20 minutes straight. Like that really is gonna wear on you.
Yep.
But like, I mean, is anyone doing that in the training? Like,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, that's what they're required to do. So if I'm the SME running around with them, I determine, because obviously you can't use real bullets and stuff. Like sometimes they'd use simulation rounds, so like paintball rounds, kind of.
Okay.
And they hurt like heck. Apparently, I've seen some of the welts that they leave the guys, because they actually put them in a shell.
Oh,
and so you're shooting with your actual weapon. Anyway,
brutal.
So you can do that, but typically they would fire blanks. So you've got all the noise, because they're loud. They're probably not as loud as a real round, but you've got blanks. So it's just the shell without the actual round in it. So they're running around shooting all that. And that's the AK-47s on one side, and then the M4s, the ARs, AR platform, I should say. And then they have the 249s and stuff. So like the big machine guns, some guys are running around with that, and just like they had in the movie when he was just letting it rip, like they've got those things. So they have all that noise going on, and then there's speakers throughout the whole town. So I can run what they call the call to prayer. So like when they started saying Allahu Akbar and like starting to call the guys and say, hey, when those two interpreters were like, oh, they're calling for us. They know we're here, and they want all the people, and they can hear that over the loudspeakers. They're calling it. They have that as well, and that's a common thing.
Gotcha.
So they would play that. They'd play that kind of thing. So there's a radicalist speech that they had recorded, and then there was what they call a call to prayer, and that's a song that they would sing as like a mosque. They would draw them in, but to us, that we knew there was a sign of danger. It was like, oh, they're basically calling everybody in to begin their attack, essentially. But they would play it on a loop, and they just keep it going for the whole scenario. And this can go like 15, 20, 30 minutes. And that thing will just keep going. So they wear on them as much as they possibly can.
Wow.
They have real kinetics, or real pyrotechnics, I should say. They have a line that runs from the top of the building down to the bottom, and there'll be like something that'll slide down and explode, like they're actually getting shot at. So they have that kind of thing. They'll have actual explosives that just blow out a bunch of smoke and just hangs in the air. They use real smoke when they're throwing out their smoke grenades. Like, it's as real as they can possibly make it.
Yeah.
So it's called the...
Well, but I mean, like, the people, can you get, like, because,
Yeah,
is it like, okay, you got shot, so now pretend like you're dying?
Yep, and he'll do it.
You gotta be an actor, too.
Yeah, and that's something that they're graded on, too, is that they'll come in and they'll talk about it afterwards and be like, man, Jones over here really gave an Oscar-winning performance, which is great, because sometimes...
But Riley, you don't sound like you're dying.
Do better, dude. But they'll actually do that. They'll be like, okay, like, you have a sucking chest wound, or you have an arterial bleed, or whatever.
Okay.
So they'll tell them what it is, and they're supposed to relay that to whomever to the doc so he can come and actually appropriately treat that. But they're supposed to react like they have it. So
Okay.
they
Yeah.
will sit there
Yeah.
and scream for X amount of time until the SME
Mhm.
comes over and is like, "All right, you're passed out or something," and they'll tell them, "All right, you're non-cognizant. You're just gonna sit there." But sometimes they'll put him in a scenario where the guy gets left in the street and it's hard to get back out to him because they're pinned down or something.
Mhm.
And so they'll have them scream in the street, and the guys can't get out and save their friend. And then like it'll just be as
Yeah.
real as you can make it. But yeah, I mean, was that answering your question?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah, because like there's a lot of those sequences. It's like everything you're describing is pretty much just like verbatim what happens, just in a more real life context in the movie.
yeah,
It's like there's this bomb that goes off, and again, like you mentioned it before, but it's not really clear in the movie like what caused it or what triggers it, because you just have to deal with like the fact that it happened.
yep,
So it does. This is one of those movies where the most important elements to it was actually the sound design and the makeup.
oh yeah.
Like, it's strange to say that because I can't think of too many other movies where it's like, oh yeah, sound and makeup is what matters most. But in this movie, that's exactly what it was, because it's a lot of like,
Well, it's trying to immerse you in that feeling. Like, what would you feel if this guy was screaming and then bullets were flying at you and all that kind of stuff? And
right.
it does a great job. You really feel that.
Yeah,
I was feeling
exactly.
like, oh man, I would never want to be in this scenario. But then also, this guy is screaming the whole time and how much pain he's in
Yeah.
and like what all that looks like is
Yeah, it's
it's
like the
pretty
way
freaking
they
real.
did the makeup for their, it's like, ugh. So like, yeah, this bomb goes off, but then they kind of wake up. And as each character is waking up, like periodically, it's just like, it's like they're deafened, but also like it's rattled them at
Mm.
that point. Like they're just like, they got the wind knocked out of them completely. And it's not that they're not cognizant, they are, but there's like a there's like a humongous long time to recovery. It's like, whoa, okay, I need to see if I can put myself back together to figure out where am I. That's right. It was a Monday. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
it's like that kind of like
What's my name?
rebuild, yeah, rebuild step 1, step 2 kind of thing. And then when they do, they like drag some of their guys back in the building, and they're trying to take care of them, and it's just completely devastating. And it's full of all these little details of like mistakes, things that they like, I'll just spoil one, but like there's plenty of them. He goes to like give the guy morphine because he's in
Oh
so
yeah.
much pain, and he flips it upside down, so when he goes to inject it into him, he pushes his thumb into the prick, the point, and it jabs him, and he injects himself with morphine. And he's like, ah.
But that's an easy mistake to make when you're
Yeah.
in a stressful situation. You're
Well,
not
that's the whole point.
checking
Yeah.
small details.
It's not that he doesn't know how to do it. He clearly knows how to do it.
Right.
It's just that in the midst of everything, it's like, ah, sheesh, I can't believe I did that backwards. And it's like, all right, we'll get another one. He still needs morphine. He's,
Right.
screaming out the wazoo here. Um, yeah, so there's like that kind of stuff, and then there's like one character who just like kind of gradually kind of just breaks down, and then he just has to like sit down, and he sits down in a place where it's like not even clear if that's super safe or not.
Right.
So he's not really like making
He's
that
in with the
connection.
homeowners and you're not even sure if they're dangerous or not.
Yeah, it's like
But he
for all
just
we
walks
know.
in and sits down. So
Yeah,
they're scared of him.
right.
He doesn't even know that they're there. It's but this is the situation, right? And based off
Yeah.
of their memories, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Captain just went in and sat down with the homeowner because he wasn't thinking straight.
Right.
He wasn't thinking at all. Probably he was just sucked into himself trying to comprehend the situation because it came like reality came and just smacked all of these dudes in the face really hard. It
Yeah.
was a straight KO. And coming back from it just took a long time, and for some of them, it didn't work at all. Like they didn't come back. It's like
Yeah,
because there was a conversation he has with the other guy that comes in to save him. He's like, "I'm not able to do this. I can't. I have no functionality right now. I need you to take charge."
yeah.
And it was an interesting moment because he was cognizant enough to know that, but not cognizant enough to have any kind of
To actually
authority.
do something about
Right.
it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah, that's the part that I feel like would be hard, like even because you would always know that someone's acting, like if they get hit or something. I
yeah.
guess maybe the loud noises might kind of rattle you
It'll
a
stress
bit.
you out.
Yeah, and
It stressed
the
us
dumb.
out in the control room. We're just like listening to this thing, like, turn it off. So, being in the environment with other people shooting at you and then trying to make a decision that's like safest when you're in that environment, there are
Yeah.
no like safest decisions. Just make a
Mm.
decision.
Yeah, do
Because
something.
making a
Yeah.
decision or doing something is always better than not. And that was what they were
Yeah.
trying to instill, is that it doesn't matter what is right or wrong. It matters to do something. And there
Yeah.
are a list of priorities, like I said, neutralize the threat, grab your wounded, and then do the best you can to make sure that you've secured everyone else. Like, that's it. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Like, and if you can secure down a spot, then maybe go after that guy if you know where he's at and be aggressive. Like, take him down before
Sure,
he
sure.
pins you into a situation you
Right,
can't
because
get
he
out
could
of.
be he's a threat to other units who might also go down, and then it's like it worsens the problem.
Well,
So
it's either that or he keeps you pinned down long enough for everyone else to show up and now you have a worse situation.
sure,
Stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so, and
Mhm.
you don't know what you're missing, like he might be doing that so that everyone can grab all the stuff that you're after, some weapons cache or something, and they all pull that and leave, and now you've lost your opportunity. And
Sure.
that does become a danger down the road. You never
Yeah.
know. One of the other mistakes, by the way, in this film that was really interesting, and it was really quick, but it leads to a decision that I thought was fascinating because it was like, man, what would I do in that situation? I'm not even sure it was the right one or the wrong one.
Mm.
But they bring in the first tank, it blows up, and that's like, is not spoiling anything there. That's how the movie kind of begins. It's like situation that they get stuck in. That happens. They say it's an IED. Like I said,
Okay.
the movie does nothing to tell you what it is. It all you know is that this exploded and it's bad
Right.
situation now. They call in for support, and support denies them. They're like, no. If there's IEDs out there, we're not sending more tanks.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. We don't know that it was an IED. You have no idea if that is still an existing threat or if one guy just had an RPG he shot off. Maybe he has
Oh,
no more ammo
yeah.
or something, and actually that street is totally safe now.
I see.
You have no idea.
Mhm.
But they make the call. It's like, hey, you're going to impersonate the higher
The
ups
CO? Yeah, exactly.
so that you can just send
So
them in.
yeah, he gives him the order. He's like, "Okay, like call for backup." And then he tries it and he's like, "Well, it's denied." And he's like, "All right, we're going to have to pretend to be the CO then."
Yep.
Just
Yeah, you got to
give the
get the
order.
tanks over here,
And
otherwise
he's
we're
like
dead.
and he's like, "Well, it's like, I'm clearly, that's a violation. I can't be
Yeah,
doing that."
big trouble.
But then he's like, "Well, I guess I'm doing it now." So he does it. Yeah, that was a really interesting
It's a
moment
dilemma.
because
It's a moral quandary that he had to deal with because he's like, man, I could get in really big trouble.
right.
Alternatively, we might all be dead if I don't. So
Yeah,
which one do I
exactly.
do?
Right. And so it almost seemed like I see when the movie was happening, I wasn't sure if they were convinced because I was like, aren't they going to suspect that he's just has the same voice from the same channel? Like, why
Right.
would they be convinced that he's the CEO or that he has confirmation at all? But then I thought, like, maybe they don't care. It's just the fact that he said it was
Sure.
like,
That's
oh,
not
your
it.
situation must be bad if you're
Well, it might
saying
not
that.
even be that much. It might be the other guy just not caring enough. All he knows that now it's not going to be blamed on him. Like
Yeah,
he's like,
maybe.
I got confirmation, so I didn't
Right.
know he was impersonating him, but that's like I sent him in, they got saved, right? So what do you want me to do? Because on,
Right, right,
on
right.
another hand, it's like this could be a really funny story, or this could be something that's taught not to do.
Right.
It depends on which one you right, which one's right. If those tanks went and got blown up just the same as the first one, well then that guy did a really bad thing. But if it ends up turning into a really good rescue mission and everyone's saved because of it, it's like this idiot.
He's a hero.
Yeah, he's a hero, but that guy, don't ever impersonate a CEO. Stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
there was a time when I was working on base, just as a weird anecdote. So my coworker had befriended a pilot, a helicopter pilot.
Okay.
This guy, his name was Brian. He,
Oh, I remember this guy.
this guy, he got the truck stuck in a sand bed. He was driving around, sunk it down to the frame of the truck. Couldn't get it out, obviously. So this guy, he calls my boss first and is like, hey, I got you stuck. I need you to come pull me out. And they're like, all right, just hang tight. We'll come get you. And then this guy calls his pilot buddy and is like, hey, I got my truck stuck over here. Where are you at? And he goes, don't, I'll be there in a second. So idiot number one and idiot number two. The pilot flies over, comes and picks Brian up. Brian jumps onto the helicopter. I don't know what the plan was here because they're clearly not doing anything with the truck. They start flying around. Brian leans out of the helicopter and starts waving to my boss and the GS employee. It's a government employee And I think there was a colonel or a gunnery sergeant or something that were standing out there as well.
Whoa.
Bunch of high up dudes. He's waving at him from the helicopter like an idiot. So my boss is like, "Why is Brian in a helicopter? I told him to wait so I can come pull him out." And the other guy's like, "Why is there a civilian in that chopper right now?" And so they go, "Who's that?" It's a bad question to ask. Because that he just asked, "Who's in trouble?" So Brian, I think, just got away with the tongue lashing. I don't know how, but he's not the one flying the chopper. The pilot lost his wing. He didn't get to fly anymore.
Interesting that he took more of the penalty.
It's his chopper. He didn't have clearance to be flying where he was flying. He definitely didn't have clearance to put a civilian on his bird.
Huh.
So he just happened to put himself in a situation where he got himself in really big trouble.
I see. The standards were different for him because he was in the military.
Brian is just an idiot civilian that was offered a ride. Like, of course he's going to say yes. But it's funny because, like, if he got away with it, that would have been just a funny story.
I see.
But he didn't get away with it. So now he's actually facing consequences. You see, like, where that difference is?
Yeah.
So, anyway, weird anecdote for that point. Stupid Brian. Anyway. So what do you think the value of this film is, I guess, as a whole? Like, if you were to synopsize that.
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. I was trying to think of how to get back to it, because you have so many stories.
I flew around so many anecdotes. My bad, guys.
You're good. It's interesting to hear more insight. I mean, it's kind of like the reverse Nosferatu episode, put it that way. Because I don't have really any military experience. I don't.
Neither do I. I was a civilian through and through.
Yeah, but you were around them.
Base,
you saw like how they operated and how they were like interacting with each other. So you could verify more than me, anyways. That's definitely like worth something.
Thanks.
But
I bring something to the show. You're welcome.
I mean, I wasn't alive in the 1700s to verify like the Gothic literature when it was written. Oh, this is so Gothic. Like, you just study it. It's your experience.
Just pay attention.
Yeah. But yeah, this movie feels like. Oh, okay. You know what it is? Because I checked the director for this movie, and it was a team. I don't know one of them, but the other one I know, and it's Alex Garland. And he's the guy who made Civil War, which
you love that movie.
Exactly, which is why I think it was second place on the worst movie I saw last year. I did not like that movie at all. It was terrible, so tone deaf, just completely missing the point, trying to get involved in American politics without actually any politics. So that movie, though, it did have a modicum of something working for it, and that was whenever the shootout scenes were happening, the way they handled the sound and the way, like, the kind of, how do I put it, like, the type of, like, grounded, realistic acting they have, like, everyone do when they're just, like, shooting at each other or whatever, or, like, get over here, like, give me back up, that kind of stuff. So this movie takes that and just, like, cranks that up to 11 and then cuts out all the other pretentious bias stuff that was going on with Civil War.
Yeah, because it has no bias.
Exactly. It's just these are the events. Although I am going to push back on that because that's the one thing I didn't like is when it came to the epilogue. Not the ending, but the epilogue. So like the movie is just like this interesting it was a really interesting execution of film as a medium because we look at it so much. You go to the theater and you see a movie, or you go and watch a documentary, and there's like two very separate fields. That's how they're portrayed. I mean, and there's some other things too, like you have like TV shows or whatever, but everything is like either dramatization of some sort, right? Well, this was kind of different. It was like a mixture of dramatization and documentary, like so much so that they were completely intertwined. Because you can't say it was just documentary because it didn't have enough like information. There was no interviews. It was based on memories, not true events. So it doesn't really satisfy that criteria. But it's not quite a movie because there's no main character. There's no plot. There's no story. There's no like, you know what I mean? Like it's just missing all of the things you would anticipate. And that was actually the one criticism I could see from like audiences was like, oh, there's no story. Like, yeah, but this is clearly about an experience. It's just trying to help you like feel and acclimate to like what these guys had gone through. And from that respect, it absolutely succeeds.
Yeah.
My issue with the epilogue is that it it shows up, and it's just kind of this. It plays music for one, which I didn't think was the right call because it was better when
during the epilogue.
during the epilogue it plays music, not throughout the movie. There was none, like I said before, but like then it shows up, and then it was like this weird thing to appear. I was like, why are you here? Like you have no business being here. And then it also is. I understand why it's supposed to fit the sequence, and the sequence is it's kind of like you have some behind the scenes footage, and then you have like pictures of like the real people and like who played them like side by side. But it was very strange because for one, almost everybody had their face like blurred out except for like 3 people. So I was like, what's the point of showing all these photos of the actors? Like, see, it's just like the real person. It's like,
Right.
I can't.
How do I know?
Their face is all blurred out. It doesn't tell me anything. So that was odd choice, but it kind of like it's this larger problem I think with like just like war movies is there's this like cuz nowadays we want things to be grounded and realistic and authentic to source material. That's a big thing nowadays. Like, 20 years ago, you could adapt a comic book and it would just be like this fun, fanciful thing. And nobody really cared if you were adapting a novel or a comic book and you did it incorrectly. It was just like, oh, that was a good movie or a bad movie. That was the evaluation. Nowadays, though, that's not how it happened in the book. And, this is because it's like more millennials making movies nowadays and that like the tone has shifted. And their whole emphasis is like, well, that's not what actually happened. So you can't do it that way. It's got to be realistic all the time.
Sure.
So this movie was like, it had already done a satisfactory job of helping me like feel what these guys had gone through on like as much as a medium of piece of film would it be able to do to a person. And then it was like, okay, but remember these were real people. See, here's some real people, and there's some like footage of like the real soldiers or whatever, and they've like recovered from their injuries or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to say like I don't care, but like I don't care. And it's not because I don't care about them, but it's like they're making the movie about them.
Yeah.
And that's like just odd to me because I'm like, but you're only about them if you're a documentary, and even then, not really. Because you're a piece of art, and if you're a piece of art, you're not really about any one particular
It's just a
person.
reflection of reality. Now you've pulled in reality into that reflection, so now it's like, well, where's the distinguishing? You've made it too distinguishing, so that now it feels less real.
Exactly. Now it felt like, oh, so what I saw before was made up.
Right.
And it's like
it just diminished the piece of art that you put in front of me.
Right.
I get what you're saying. Okay,
right. Exactly. And it's like they're treated as two separate things, so I can just do that. Now, what I've preferred, because you actually commented on this in the theater, is that the lights were actually dim for quite a while as it was playing the credits. And then it's sometimes
I made like a comment or something about it feeling like a Marvel movie because the lights didn't come on right away. I was like, they have after credits for this or something, like the sequel's coming out, like the main villain's gonna show up.
2, Death and Recovery,
coming back to real life or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, they stayed down, so it was weird.
And that's sometimes it's like like Lord of the Rings has like those portraits that it does at the end of Return of the King.
Right.
It's obviously the lights are dimmed for that sequence. So if it's doing those early credits and then it played the epilogue as like a kind of bonus thing that you might have missed, I would have been more okay with it.
It would have separated it further from the film, yeah.
Yeah, I would have been like, this was like extra thing that like, we recorded. Sometimes that's nice, but I didn't need it shoved into my face. Because what then it decided to do was like, well, we're not really a film. We just want to honor our veteran. And I'm like, okay.
Didn't
but
you do
like,
that by making the movie?
Well, yeah, it's like, so did you not already honor them by just trying to faithfully capture their experience?
Sure.
Because let me put it in another perspective. Like, people say Saving Private Ryan is like one of the greatest war movies ever. And I would agree with that sentiment. I think it's an excellent film. But like, that movie does have some of the war movie tropes where, it's like there's like a heroic person in it, or like he rises to heroic stature. And it's like people, I think some people, especially if they're like younger, more immature, they take that to be like, oh, well, you're like glorifying war. And it's like, it's not glorifying war. It's glorifying like the people who had to go through those experiences and trying to give them like, not even glorify them, but just like, how do
they
I
rise
put
to
it?
occasion,
You kind of honor them, basically, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah, they rose to the occasion, and so you honor that. Someone did something great. And that's the same of like any kind of movie, right? Someone does something great, that's like inspiring. That's
Sure.
that
Praiseworthy at best.
yeah, it's praiseworthy. It's something that is worthwhile. So I'm not trying to diminish that. I think all of that is important. The thing I'm targeting is why they felt the need that there were like two ways to look at this specifically. And they picked one that was new and innovative and really powerful, very compelling. And then they did this other one that I've seen 10,000 times over and just slapped it onto the end and
Yeah.
was like, you should look at that too.
It was
You should
almost- it was
also on it.
almost-
It's like, I got it.
Right. It was almost an afterthought too, because it was like, yeah, this is just the little 2-minute segment that we're gonna put in
Mhm.
just to keep in mind that these are based on real people. I was like, well, I remembered that though.
Yeah.
So yeah, agreed. It was a weird contrast to put in there.
Because like that stuff wasn't their memories.
What stuff? Oh,
The stuff
the
at the
film.
end. It's like the photos
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the actors, or it's
Yeah.
like, one of
It's
the
just what
military
they
guys.
contributed to the movie.
Yeah, what they contributed to the movie. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything?
Right.
Like
yeah, we saw that. We saw that part.
yeah, but it's like this representation of like a cultural thing,
Mm.
right? Like culturally, it's like, okay,
We like to
respect for our
connect to them.
veterans.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I again, I'm all for that, but I just feel like it's okay to like push us, and I feel like that's what the movie was doing. I mean, think about it. You've got the only saving grace here is that it's short. Otherwise, it's like you have a movie with no music, no really big name actors to speak of. There's no characters, really. There's no plot. So you're missing a lot of details, and there's no like context for things. Like, when they're calling for base or, support or whatever, you don't see the other people on the line. You just hear them through
Yeah.
because that's what they get through the radio or whatever. So like, these are a lot of bold decisions that have a very important and particular effect. And I just feel like that in and of itself should be recognized without having to like also feel like it, because essentially it's political, basically, right? It's showing partisanship, and it's not like it's bad, but that's why it's like, okay, well, it's fine because of who it's acknowledging.
Yeah, you're putting it in the light. You're like, oh, see, this is who we made it for, rather than just allowing people to experience the film in the way that it's made. Because it's already made in order to give you that experience. Like, it's done all these things to portray a message. So whatever you come away with is like,
right.
It's probably going to be within the ballpark of what they were trying to say.
Yeah.
Because of how many parameters they put around it. But then to essentially putting a face to the name and showing all the guys that were involved is like, no, it's for these guys. And it's like, yeah, I know. I watched the movie. It's like I saw all of them.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you don't even get to see those guys anyway, because about 98% of the faces are all blurred.
Yeah.
You
so
see, it's
what
like,
are we looking at?
what's the point? I mean,
I get that you want to honor them. They
Right.
didn't seem like they wanted to be honored that much in this movie
Well-
because they want their faces blotted. So I don't, you know what I mean?
fair point.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a larger. It's kind of like those movies when they end and it puts up text on the screen like, he never recovered, or like,
Yeah.
it took 12 years for this to whatever come
They
to
chased
light.
each other for 10 more years, and then they both died.
Yeah, the legal system wouldn't adjust for another 5 years to this thing,
Right.
whatever. And that's like, I don't care too much for those either, but at least that's something that's just text. Like, I've accepted the movie has ended at that
Sure.
point, because when you put it on text on a black screen, it's like your credits. I don't factor in the credits very much, other than like what audio is playing. That's the only thing that matters.
Sure.
Because like the text, the credits is just hey, you're the people who made it, so you have to have it included in the reel, so that way we know who is responsible for making this,
Sure.
in case we want to reference it for historical purposes, or to study it, or to give it awards or whatever. So like that I'm kind of more okay with, but this like documentary thing where they just kind of like shoehorn that in, it's just,
Didn't fit.
this one just really stuck out to me, though, because in other movies, I've never really delved into the subject matter before, but in this movie, it bothered me because I'm like, I was so like, because I was just stuck. I was just with them, and I'm watching all this suffering and this dying and this hurting, and I'm like really trying to like get through this, and I'm watching all the different characters how they like react to this situation, and how like heavy and intense it is, and you're like, and it just felt like a lack of confidence to then shift over and be like, now I'm going to tell you what you should feel. I know what I was feeling.
Right.
You didn't have to interrupt it.
Yeah, you did a great job. And then
You
you
did a
told me
great
that you
job.
didn't feel like you did a good job.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Well, do you have any other points on that?
No, I don't think so.
Do you have any other dislikes of the film?
Not particularly, but I mean, you started this out talking like that it was a horror movie that you were disappointed. Is
Yeah,
that true?
I'm just gonna give a couple of finishing points, I suppose. So this is an A24 film. You know, famously Hereditary, Heretic, Midsummer.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I
but
guess they do a lot of horror,
a
don't
lot
they?
of horror. So this wasn't a horror movie. Didn't like that.
That's the big mistake it made.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I
What do you
guess
want?
jokes on me for having expectations.
So you would like some jump scares, maybe like a vampire eats somebody.
Yeah, the other big thing that I wanted to say is that it wasn't bloody enough.
Oh yes,
Um,
just like Nosferatu, not bloody enough.
it wasn't. It wasn't dark enough at all. So yeah, I didn't like any of that. Yeah, you're right. Then there wasn't enough jump scares. So, but the last and final point is just I really wasn't sure what the point of the movie was.
Love how you you can't get through that.
I tried. We're like 50 minutes in talking about the point of the movie. Like, I don't know what it was about.
I know, cool, because the point of the movie is so much the focus. So
Right.
it's kind of like
Yeah, they go hand in hand. If you didn't get it, it's like, well, you didn't watch the movie then. So what did you miss?
it kind of makes me wonder how this movie will do like in the future as well, because it's a bit experimental. So I could see it not holding up in the future, but at the same time, it really is very raw.
It's extremely raw, and it's also about an event that happened 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to some extent, it holds up even with that much time having passed since the actual event. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't imagine it aging horribly.
I don't think it'll age poorly at all. I'm just wondering like what the reception, because right now the reception's good. Everybody likes it, critics and audiences alike. But it's the kind of thing where I'm like, does that persist throughout time? Like, does it get like archived or documented in some way? Because it's the kind of movie like I'll just put it right now. And I know this doesn't matter as much to you, but like this movie could do very well at the Oscars if not for that epilogue. That epilogue will hurt it because it determines.
Detracts from it.
Yeah, it's like it's then shows this error in like confidence about. It's not like embracing the execution of the medium, and instead it's like I have to pull back. So, and it's like I don't know why you would pull back.
Yeah.
It's this kind of, it's like what happened in reality is more important to the filmmakers than what the experiences you get as a viewer. And like I just disagree with that. When it's art, the viewer's experience is what's most important.
Sure. And if you failed to convey your message in that way to get your message across, then that's your fault, not theirs.
Basically, yeah. Like as an artist myself, like as a writer, that's how I feel about it. Like, because I'm no longer important at some point. Like at some point, I'll be dead, and then my books will just be around.
Sure.
And then you can go read those. But like, what does it matter what I felt when I was writing them? At that point, it's like kind of a mood issue. It matters what you're feeling right now reading the book.
Yeah.
So if I kind of breach that, I have to have a very good reason for doing so. And I just, there isn't that justification there. And so, Saving Private Ryan's held up on this pedestal as like the greatest war movie ever, or some people will say. I mean, there's others too, but like, that's like the typical example you'll reference. And so I'm like, this movie feels like it would deserve that same level of praise, I think, just because of like how it just pushed so far away from how other war movies are executed.
That's fair.
I mean, like some of the makeup design, like it was gross. I was like, this is just nasty. Like,
I could
oh
feel,
my gosh,
because obviously I was doing it too, but I could feel everyone just clenching during some of those. Like, it was some rough scenes in there. It's tough. It's tough to watch. Like Saving Private Ryan definitely has a bunch of those as well.
But that's like it's mostly like the beginning and the end, and then you get this mid portion where you're kind of okay and you can handle it. But this movie is
Just
like
throughout the whole thing.
We're just dealing with it, and like oh yeah, there's this scene where they're like, okay, we have evac in like 6 minutes or whatever. And I timed it. It's like literally 6 minutes. Like I didn't time it exactly, but like they check it at one point and they're like 2 minutes left. And then I like checked my phone really quick. I didn't make a big deal of it. Okay, nobody saw.
He cranked the brightness up and was like, look, everyone, he's telling the truth.
But I wanted to know because I was like, they seem like they're intent on being very accurate. So how accurate is this? So they said 6 minutes and then they said like 4 minutes or whatever. And then they said 2 minutes. And that's when I checked. And then exactly a minute had gone by when they said, well, how long is it? 1 more minute. And I was like, huh.
Wow.
Okay.
A lot of attention to detail in the film.
Yeah.
The last question, would you recommend it?
Absolutely, but not for the faint of heart, and not if you
Yeah.
don't want to be. Because this is the kind of movie that can generally traumatize a person if they're not.
That's
If
fair.
you've never seen a war movie, don't start here.
Start with Saving Private Ryan.
I don't even know if I would say that. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely that one. At least is going to end in such a way where it's like, ah, and this
Sure.
one's just like, oh,
Yeah, you're not
it's
really
finally
sure.
over.
Yeah.
Not like the movie's
And there's
finally
not
over, but
really
like that thing we had to endure is gone. Like
there's not a happy ending. There's not like a victor. It just kind of ends. And
yeah,
I think that was probably the last point I'll make on the film is that if I were to pull some kind of message out of it, that might be the one. Because the amount of shooting and destruction and everything going on, all that seemed to happen was that a lot of people got irreparably hurt.
yeah,
Guy lost his legs, and the guy was, I don't even know what his status is today, but, was pretty severely injured.
mm-hmm.
But after they leave, like you said, I think one or two guys they show actually getting shot, one of the bad guys of the film, the antagonist. But after they bugger out, everybody just comes out, and it looks like they go back to life as normal, except all the buildings are just more shot up now.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like a lot of them got hit. Doesn't look like anything was progressed or regressed at all. It just kind of was like everyone just started shooting at each other for this time or this point in time, and then they went their separate ways. It didn't seem like there was any real point,
Yeah.
And there was I would question like if that's his purpose of the film is, well, how useful is war when you really get down to the granular level?
Yes.
Yeah. Not as a bigger picture on like whether we defeat the Nazis or something, but when you get all the way down
Yeah.
and look at these little instances.
Never mind all the politics.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that also is aptly chosen for because it's it's like I wish you'd double checked which war exactly it was, but I'm assuming because it took place in 2005. That was George Bush, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So okay, so like it's not. It doesn't seem to be at all interested in why the war is happening whatsoever. So in that sense, it's very apolitical because in the mind of the movie, the thesis of the film is war is apolitical. War doesn't care.
On that level, yes.
Right. Like
It's just a survival at that point.
right. There's a certain level of which this is just human atrocities being committed.
Yep.
And that part never goes away despite whatever politics may be happening.
Yeah, despite how good the ideology that inspired it might be, or how bad what you're fighting against is,
Yeah.
it still will lead to these things where guys will step up and there's a heroicism in that. But yeah, how worth it is it at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Which I know we all have our ideologies, and I'm not trying to downplay the heroicism of these guys or what they did, or they stepped up and they wwere brave in a place that I've never been, so I can't say anything about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they make a tremendous sacrifice. Like you're just see, because this is the thing. I don't want to use that epilogue. I'm just going to use the main film.
Yeah.
Because I can see the sacrifice they're making. Because like that opening scene of them watching this, like the
workout video,
Buns and
Buns
Thighs
of
video,
Steel.
Buns of Steel or whatever. Yeah, and it's like okay, so they're like they're being guys or whatever, but it's at the same time like. It doesn't really matter what their values or their personality or their
Sure.
it was just a representation of like they have interests just like the same of us. They've got a sex
Right.
drive like the rest of us. Big shocker there. But it's like they have a right to live was kind of the idea. It's like
Right.
everybody has a right to live. And when you put them in a war scenario, not only do people die, but they die horribly.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't get away from that reality, no matter how justified the war is.
Sure.
And I sometimes feel like people often miss that point. I'm like, just call the spade a spade. It doesn't matter if it's justified. It just matters that this part of it is exactly what it looks like. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they did a good job.
They
So.
did.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.